會聽到清楚冇？
清楚，應該係上咗㗎啦。OK，good，而家 live 緊㗎啦。好 ，OK， 各位都又一個禮拜啦，各位晚安啦。呢個禮拜就好特別嘅，呢個禮拜仲係好多居 case 係馬來西亞有史以嚟最多 case。不過唔緊要，今日我哋都要分享翻個正能量。今日又有我 BenGio 喺度，一個 LifeStylist， 一個生活法師，我哋同佢分享一啲我哋嘅叫做咩叫做征服人生呢個企業精神。而家我哋有邀請到一個遠嚟嘅一個叫做Chiew Bong brother Chiew Bong from Sabah。Chiew Bong， 你輕輕咁介紹你多少？
好啊，我係 Chiew Bong 啊，我係來自阿 B 就係 Kota Kinabalu 喺沙巴州嘅。我咧係一個則師嚟嘅，即係 architect 啦。我又係一個 master planner， 一個規劃師啊。Well, I want to switch my sharing into English so that you'll be smoother. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So I've been working as an architect for more than 30 years. Over the period of my career as an architect, I've always been very conscious of doing my part as a believer of Jesus Christ. So I will been doing work mixing with the ministry in my work for all these years of 30 years of my life. And I'm so glad that by doing what God asked me to do, then I can truly feel that my life are being very fulfilled. Very enjoying what I'm doing. And that's why I'm here. Thank you, BenGio.
嗱，你睇下我哋嘅 brother Chiew Bong啊，佢就係一個好特別嘅。今日我特別請緊呢個特別嘅嘉賓咧，佢有兩個唔同嘅身份嘅。一個身份咧，佢嘅創業精神咧就喺個事業嘅字裏邊，有一個而家一個好成功嘅 architecture 啦，architect 嘅 designer， 亦多方面咧，佢都係一個叫做我哋叫做講職場上嘅一個讀個神學，一個傳福音。陣間你聽佢講佢點樣講呢個兩個點樣兼顧兩個呢咁嘅身份，就非常之特別嘅一個弟兄嘅。陣間我哋慢慢講到透露就多啲認識我哋呢個 brother Chiew Bong 啦。OK， 開始 brother Chiew Bong， 我知道你係好細個時候你就講呢個Melbourne Australia 咧係讀開你嘅頭一個嘅你嘅 degree 同埋 accept Christ 喺嗰度㗎，你講嚟聽下你點樣開始？
喺1983年嗰一年我就係讀完 Form 5，然之後就喺 KK 就飛到去墨爾本去讀我嘅 Year 12啦，即係 pre-university course。And when I arrived in Australia, I did not know anyone, and somehow the others, I was being put into a house that are full of students, but these students are doing their PhD and a master degree, but they accepted me very openly, and I was able to stay with them for 2 weeks. But these 2 weeks of stay with them, I realized that, hey, they have something that I never had experienced in my life. They have the joy, they like to help people, and they are quite different from those friends that I had used to have in KK. So as I get to know them more, realize that what makes them different from other people is because they have God in their life, and I didn't have.
Oh, really? 我嗰時你未信主㗎啦 ，OK.
So in 1983, the years that I was in Australia, I came to know Jesus through this group of friends. In fact, one day I was looking at the photograph in the room where I was being put and stay in, and I saw a very formal kind of photograph. So I asked this particular person, who are these people? He said that the guy in the middle is my father. Then I looked carefully, the father was in fact the Deputy Chief Minister of Sabah. That was my first experience with Christians. So this brother, he slept on the floor and he allowed me to sleep on his bed for 2 weeks. And he is the son of a Deputy Chief Minister, which I did not know. So I was truly touched, and it makes a huge difference in my life to see how a person is so humble.
Oh, okay.
And taught me and bring me around, helped me to open up my bank account and visited me every week and teach me about God. I think that's my first encounter with Jesus. Yes.
哇！真係你嗰個即係一個俾你我哋叫做成日都講話，佢真係活喺基督裏邊去將愛即係同埋個 humble， 我都睇到。而家你仲係同佢都係好朋友啦。
我哋而家其實係失咗係聯絡，但係我知道佢喺邊度啦。
OK，
呢一班弟兄已經讀完咗佢啲博士啦。
really OK。
其中一個仍然而家都喺馬來西亞做緊一個政治人物，同埋一個黨嘅領袖啊。
跟住之後你讀完你嘅書，你嗰個攞緊係嗰個Bachelor of Arts 係嘛？
我第一個係 Bachelor of Arts in Architecture 喺1987，第二個嘅學士咧就係 Bachelor of Architecture 喺199090年。
你都係你響呢個設計方面，你之前都係好有興趣嘅，咁你先再去讀嘅。OK。
其實好睇翻轉頭好有興趣嘅就係我喺3年級，應該喺3年級嗰陣時，我就同我媽講，我長大我要成為個則師。所以我媽又唔係好知道點則師係做啲咩㗎啦。咁佢就鼓勵我去參與多啲畫畫啊，或者係即係 design 多類似嘅嘢啦。咁就慢慢嘅培養呢個興趣，一直到1985年咧，就係第一年我進入呢個大學讀呢個學士嘅。我哋讀 architecture 讀兩個 degree 嘅嗰陣時。
係啦，你征服咗你自己興趣，讀開你個 architecture 裏邊咧，即使你讀完啦，但係我知道你後來你係要讀神學嘅喎。係啊，
喺1985年我開始讀呢個則師嘅學士嘅學位嗰陣時咧，我就參與到一間教會，呢個教會裏邊咧就有一班嘅弟兄姊妹。就嗌做 Overseas Christian Fellowship OCF，咁我就每個星期5就參與呢一個所謂呢個團契嘅生活嘅。咁喺呢個1985年到1990年之間咧，我就I spent a lot of time, a lot of effort to know Jesus, to work, to serve, to do all that I can to learn as much as possible。喺1990年畢業嗰陣時咧，第一樣嘢我諗到嘅就係我應該係裝備自己。Just equip myself. So the first thing I thought of is to go into a Bible college because I was in Melbourne. So I went to Howard's Bible College. Because of 2 of my degrees, they allowed me to enter into master degree in Christian ministry right away. That was early 1991.
哇！真係神好感動你，真係非常之好喎！因為做祝福你好感動你。咁你講翻你有冇挑戰咧？關於你讀書啊，或者同埋讀神學裏邊啊？因為我哋講緊嘅唔同嘅創業又好，福音嘅嗰個 vision 又好，咁你有咩個精神講嚟聽下，或者你有冇？
其實喺嗰段時間1985年到1990年咧，就係因為借着呢個侍奉。好多時間我都會聆聽到神嗰個呼召喺當中。咁第一樣嘢喺1990年，感謝主，我哋就結婚。我同我太太結婚，我太太已經係畢業咗3年，然之後佢再翻去澳洲，我哋喺澳洲結婚啦。咁我同太太講，我同太太講，我哋第一件事要做嘅就係唔係留低喺墨爾本，唔係留低喺澳洲，因為好多朋友已經留低緊喺澳洲。The reason being is that we don't want to stay because we believe that God has prepared us and therefore we have to go back to where we come from so that we can reach out to more people and bring them to come to know Jesus and the saving grace. But to prepare myself, I wanted to go into the Bible college for a year. However, after 3 months in the Bible college, I received call from Singapore from a good friend. In fact, I stayed in his house in Melbourne, but he returned to Singapore to pioneer a church. So he kept on calling me every single night. So I come to a point where I told my wife, probably I have to give up the Bible College and to go because Jesus asked us to go so that I can help my friends in Singapore. And my wife says that it's totally up to your conviction. And there and then, I also have received the immigration news that I cannot get a student visa any longer to continue my master degree. So therefore, I took it as God's sign for me to return to Malaysia or to Singapore, but we chose Singapore because there was a church pioneering work right there. So in 1991, the month of February, March, we arrived in Singapore. After 8.5 years in Australia.
Okay.
Yeah, that is the start of the second phase of.
其實我哋都既然要請到你一個咁特別嘅人物咧，我哋都想知道好多時我哋成為一個即係好多時都係啊嗱，佢有個呼召啊，都係冇啦。呼召做牧師唔係咁即係話你知啦，做牧師嘅個工錢係咩啊？咁就多數去讀起書，個職場個打棍先，咁有咗錢我都可以奉獻俾教會都係咧咁啊。另一方面有啲人嚟講，冇所謂。我係會行神嗰條路嘅，我係做牧師先。但係你又好特別喎，你又可以做職場，又可以做牧師。哇！你咁嘅 balance 又點樣可以達到呢樣嘢？有一個好多人都想知㗎，其實。
係啦，Yeah, we started off in 1991 in Singapore. Our objective is to first spend the best 30 years of our life to serve God. Because we are young, we are energetic, we are full of vitalities. Rather than giving our last 30 years to Jesus when we are in the 50s, the 60s, and the 70s. Not that you can't do that, but you will be limited because of your strength and because of your endurance spirit. So therefore, we wanted to give our best. So therefore, we plunge into the ministry right away without having to wait. We build up our career. When we have our family, when we are financially viable, then we give our time to Jesus. No, we do the other way around. We give our life to Jesus first in our life. Yeah. So the first thing we do was to go to a friend's place, and so that they can put us up because we were a student, we didn't have much. So when we were welcomed into the house, we were being given the biggest room in the house in Singapore, in Holland Village. And the biggest room is the lounge. So I stay in the lounge with my wife on the floor for a few months. The two other rooms is occupied by two other couples with their kids. We were without kids. We were a young married couple. That's how we first started, you know.
Wow, 真係呢個真係精神啊！
And to make things even more interesting is that the leaders of the household says that, well, Chiew Bong, now that you're in Singapore, you're looking for a job. Best if you can look for a job that you can work for the government. Because working for the government means that you are fixed time. You don't have to do overtime. You don't have to go to work too early or come back too late. So that you can spend a lot of your time in between and over the weekend and at night time to grow the church together. So we took that challenge, and that's how I ended up with the Urban Redevelopment Authorities of Singapore, which is basically the planning department. So I took up the job.
咁你就嗰時候就兩邊兼顧啦，之前又喺教會侍奉，又喺職場嗰度開始你嘅新加坡第一個 job。咁後期我又知道你做得好地又點樣去香港咧
？OK， 咁教會成長都好快啦。咁第一年我哋嘅成長率係差唔多700% 啦。係一個9個人嘅教會，就慢慢嘅 grew up to about 300-400。喺頭嗰2-3年裏邊啦，咁當教會成長嗰陣時咧，咁我哋嘅意象就係唔係淨喺新加坡創辦教會，咁我哋又喺呢一帶嘅地方，譬如講喺西馬啦、喺東馬啦、喺東南亞一帶嘅地方啦，都會創辦教會嘅。咁有一日我就接到個電話，呢個電話就喺曼谷打嚟嘅。So over the phone, the founder of our church, the Hope of God Church Ministry, called me up and said, Brother Chiew Bong, I need you to go to Hong Kong because we are looking at the ministry of the mainland of China. But Hong Kong will be a good midway where you can actually work there, but you can expand the ministry in China. So after that phone call, we were given probably less than 2 months to pack up and we went right to Hong Kong.
Wow,
That is 1994. That's 1994.
Only one phone call.
One phone call. Yes. BenGio, just to let you know, because of my work and the ministry in Singapore, I didn't have much time. So I quickly flew into Hong Kong for I think 3 days over the weekend and Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So once I arrived, a brother that I met brought me to go for 6 interviews. And 3 days later, I returned back to Singapore, and there were 4 offers that came through the fax. We were using the fax at that time. So I thought God was good because I had such a little time, but God offered many opportunities. So I took up one job that's from one specific company. That was early 1994.
Oh, that's good. 咁你就開始你嘅生涯就去香港同埋
係啦
OK
咁同太太同仲有2個我女同埋我仔咧，佢哋都好細，嗰個係1歲同埋6個月咁樣嘅，1歲幾同6個月。We pack up, we went to Hong Kong. Again, we were met with a church of about 9 people or so in Hong Kong. 所以每次我哋到嘅地方都係9個人啦、6個人啦。
Very good 啊，真係。OK。
Yeah, so 到香港嗰時第一樣嘢，a cultural shock is that we have to live in a house of 380 square feet the first day when we arrived. 380 square feet. I think in Singapore we stay in a flat of 1,400.
Yeah.
So we were given a 380 square feet, which we couldn't even move, So that was very interesting. Yeah.
OK，你後期我知道你就再去進展到入到去大陸啦。你嗰時候即係做講中國啦，你又點樣去嗱？你講得啱啊！你嗰個佢有個橋梁嚟嘅香港，但係你足之都係入到去做你擴散開你個福音嘅工作，你又點樣去開始咧？
Yeah. BenGio, tonight I want to share at the background of our sharing is the tent making ministry. Just like the book of Acts chapter 18 verse 1 to verse 4, it talks about Paul being a tent maker. And he met 2 persons. One is called Aquila, the other wife is called Priscilla. So they were also tent making. In other words, in today's term, tent making means that we have our job, we have our making our living, we have our professions. And while we are serving God, we are also at the same time doing what we are best trained to do. For me, of course, is an architect. But when I was in Singapore, I was a master planner for Singapore government, for Singapore city. But when I went to Hong Kong, I practiced architecture because that was my main desire. So I was right into the architecture, and just to make it even more exciting is that the company that I chose, which I did not know, was the #1 architect design firm in Hong Kong itself. So the company is very, very busy, and the boss, after the first couple of months, he sent me right up to Beijing.
I see.
Chiew Bong, you are actually in charge, or if not, with the Beijing team. So you have to travel to Beijing every 2 weeks. And that is how the beginning of the ministry in China. So God opened the door. I have the desire, but God opens the door through my work, through my career, through the events that's coming up. So I didn't worry, I did not have to struggle, I did not have to strive, but God continuously opened the door for me.
哇！呢個認真一個好大個鼓勵，因為你係睇住神個角咁樣，神會開個路俾你。呢個就係我哋成日所感謝主啊！咁我知道你喺中國裏邊後尾你就做咗好多嘢㗎咯喎，做咗一段之前。咁你喺香港就開始
喺香港創辦教會嗰陣時，咁我哋就有呢個策略啦，點樣去進入中國裏邊啦，或 Mainland China，點樣去佈滿教會啦 ，how to really spread ourselves and plant churches. Now, one of the vision in my church is to build strong and biblical disciple， 建立剛強而符合聖經嘅門徒。Then to plant strong and biblical churches， 嚟建立堅強同埋符合聖經嘅教會。Unless we have disciple, we will not be able to have the strong churches. So that is my desire. But not only in Singapore, not only in Hong Kong, but also in China and all over the world. That is my desire. And that is what God's desire as well. In Matthew chapter 28, 這個 Great Commission 裏邊你可以睇得到啦。From Judea, Samaria, and all over the world. And 神嘅説話就講到 I will be with you through the end at the age. Right to the last. So with such assurance from the Bible, I went into China not knowing anything about China. But it just happened that I can speak Mandarin. My Chinese is not that great, but I can speak Mandarin. So I was sent there. They love Malaysian architect because we are very versatile. And there's one area that God has given us this advantage. So as I gone into China, my burden for China is growing every single day. So in 1997, 96, in fact, 96, 94, we arrived in Hong Kong. 96, we started the first church in the Shenyang city, northeast of China, next to North Korea. You know, it's very, very right up. The further you go is Heilongjiang, you know.
Very good weather.
It's a very cold. In winter, it's minus 20 to minus 30 degrees. Yeah. So that was the first church that we started because it's right up to the north. We believe that if it's in the north, then we will be least detected. So therefore, we found a group of good and like-hearted people and we started the church right there and then. But it was not safe. Because at that time, the government is clamping down to the churches as well. So subsequently, we quickly repackaged ourselves and started a language school in Shenyang City. So first year, I remember we have 200 students. The second year, we have 400 students. It's a language school. We teach English, we teach French, we teach Japanese. With a group of brothers and sisters that we have organized this business. So very fast, within a year or two, the school is growing to about 500 students. So it was very successful venture. That's my first entrepreneurship, if you want to ask me about.
Okay.
So God really blessed the business. And every time when I travel from Hong Kong to Shenyang, and I will find out that testimony like people coming to know Jesus one after the others is always being feedback to me. And one miracle is that in this sort of school, we need very good English teachers so that we can teach the student. And I have teachers that come from Cambridge University, Oxford Universities, and they come and teach in our school without having to take a single cent of salary.
Really? Wow.
Yes. In fact, they are queuing up to come in because they say that they wanted to serve. And obviously, they all are believers of Jesus Christ.
I see.
Because of that, we have very highly qualified teachers to come in. And it attracted a lot of students. And therefore, God makes things work for us. That was very interesting.
Yeah. How about the school is still there?
Right now, I think it's being split into many other schools in different localities. I'm no longer looking after them after I've left Hong Kong. I was being left to the Chinese to take care of the business itself. Yeah. So the business grew from 200,000 Hong Kong dollars. We have used 200,000 Hong Kong dollars. We grew to about $3 million US in just 2 years. And a lot of inquiries wanted to buy up this business, but we decided not to do so, not to sell it. And that's one good reason for it. You want to listen to the good reason?
Of course, everybody.
Okay. The best way to train our leaders in China is not in China itself. The best way is to be able to bring them out of China so that they can be trained in Southeast Asia. They live with the church people, they teach at the church, they study at the church, they go around so that they learn about the holistic life of being a Christian before they are being put back into China and to serve God. And we did that. So the qualification, the prerequisite for you to do that is very simple. First, we will ask you to quit your job in China. Most of the members then was actually university graduates. For them to quit their job is almost impossible. And quite a lot of them are husband and wife. We ask not only the husband quit the job, but the wife also quit the job because they have to be out of China for 3 months. Now, how are we going to sustain this group of brothers and sisters being out of the China and in China and out of China again over and over again for many years? The only way is that we do a business to sustain the financial needs of these brothers and sisters. And that's why we have the language school. So the school is an umbrella for us. So there is always a reason to pioneer a business.
This really entrepreneurship, right?
Yes. But the good thing is that we do what humanly possible, whatever that we can do as a human being. But God always opened the impossible door for us to step in. And therefore the business is very viable.
非常之好啊！我聽到你個神咁祝福你一次，由讀書到新加坡，而家到香港，甚至祝福埋中國咁樣你嘅領導。跟住 after 啲你就好我都睇到你仲做好多嘅呢個咩啊就點解你又會翻個決心翻沙巴咧？做開咁多咁成功嘢，你覺得係退俾人哋，或者係呢個？
或者我翻轉頭少少先，然之後先講翻我點樣到沙巴。喺1994年，我喺新加坡嗰陣時咧，咁其實喺94年咧，新加坡政府就同我講，超邦，我哋要送你去 Harvard University 啦，喺美國。咁你讀咗書之後咧，你翻嚟新加坡，我就會 bond you. That means that I will keep you for 5 years. You cannot work for anybody, but you got to work for the government for 5 years. But you will be promoted. There will be 60 people come under your charge. And then you'll be able to rise as high as you can. But if you become a Singaporean, it's even better. You can go to the furthest and the highest. After talking to my wife, and after the phone call, we decided the otherwise. Serving God is more important than actually advancing in my career. So I went to Hong Kong. And during the last year in Hong Kong in 1998 and 1999, I was called back to Hong Kong because we will enter into a competition in Hong Kong, a huge competition, which we won together with an American company. And today, if you go to Hong Kong, one of the gateway building is called IFC2, International Finance Center 2, 88 story. That's one of the last projects that I did. We won the competition. That means that the company will do well for the next 7 to 10 years. But I decided to quit.
Hello.
So my boss was thinking, what are you doing? You know, we just have done that, you know, and you are inside the design team. In fact, the first year in Hong Kong, God has been really good because I have been promoted 3 times in a year. So I was able to enter into a very elite group within the company to go into competitions for projects. But somehow or the other, when there's to the peak of my career, and there's always a decision to make, to stay or to go. We choose to go. Simply because I'm a Malaysian, I'm a Sabahan, my wife is a Sarawatian, but we have never actually stayed in Malaysia after we finished our study. I still have my parents there in the 90s in Lahad Datu, which is we are having a lot of problems there right now for COVID-19. So we decided our kids are growing up, so it's time for us to go back and to play our role, to look after our parents and to participate in whatever the family requires us to do. So I turned down the offer of continue with this Hong Kong design firm, and therefore we go forward.
See.
Yeah.
咁聽到你講啲係咁我哋馬來西亞個祝福有個國寶翻嚟馬來西亞，好多時好似你咁樣 promote 唔翻嚟咯，嗰度步步高升啊，真係係咪？兩邊你啲經軍都咁好，咁翻到嚟之後咧，你嘅進展係講嚟聽下，沙巴嗰度你點樣嚟到做到而家咧？
咁喺1999年年尾，我哋就翻到嚟沙巴啦嚇。咁翻到嚟嗰陣時咧，第一件事就係話，我記得嘅就係話，我哋冇積蓄。Because over the year, the saving has been used up to pioneer churches, to do whatever that we need to do for our own living as well. So we started from zero when most of my friends already started 10, 15 years, you know. So what do? So I told my wife, we should believe in God. We should trust God. We should put our faith in God rather than in our career. So I started working for a firm in Kota Kinabalu. And 6 years later, I decided to leave that company and pioneer my own business. Yeah. And because of the desire to do more for Jesus, I reckon working under somebody, my times are limited. So it's better for me to work for my own, and so that I can go out and do the work of the ministry wherever that I like to do so. So therefore, I started my own firm in 2006 until my partner joined me 2 years ago. So the company names right now is Architect Jonathan Koo. So I'm a chief designer for the firm itself, and I'm also the senior partners in the firm itself.
I see.
And my children, as we have predicted, they all grew up in Malaysia. Now they can speak Bahasa Malaysia, because 2 of them born in Singapore, 1 of them born in Hong Kong. None of them were born in Malaysia, but they call themselves Malaysian, but they cannot understand what Malaysian life is. So we thought they probably will have identity problem. So we let them grow up here in Sabah over the last 20 years.
Okay, very good.
And now they have finished their study, all of them. Yeah.
咁我都睇到神好祝福你，無論你嘅事業嘅家庭very good.
Yeah. Because BenGio, we believe, my wife and myself, we believe wherever we go, whether it's for the service of God or whether it's for my professional life, the family should still stick together. Rather than my family stay in Malaysia, I work in Hong Kong, then I do the ministry in China. No, the whole family is part and parcel of God's collective team to go out and to work of God together. So, but God has really been blessing us, because as I said just now, when we first came back, we were zero in our account. But over the years, God blessed us tremendously. So if you ask me how we managed to send all 3 of our kids to South Wales for their study, all the way to their master's degree, I really do not know how. But God provided when we needed the money. And God has been good. So we were never quite worried about whether we have or we don't have. We knew that God will provide at the right time, at the right place.
覺得非常之好嘅見證咯。後期你都 appointed as a president of Hope of Church 係點樣 appoint 你嘅咧？
咁我哋翻到嚟Hope of God called Kinabalu is a growing church, but we already have a pastors, and so I will not assume the pastoral role, and I told the church that I wanted to do and concentrate a lot more into the business. But at the same time, we will like to become a mentor or an advisor or whatever that you want us to do, we will do it wholeheartedly. And so the pastors ask us to do the preaching, the teaching, the counseling, and everything else that other people don't do, we do. And as a result, eventually the church asks us to become basically the presidents of the church itself, to look after not only the ministry affair, but also the property and also the things that is related to ministry all over the place.
Oh, that's great. That's great. 咁樣係啦，我諗睇你咁多嘅做開咁多嘢，亦都係響新加坡，跟住就去香港， 跟住就中國，跟住就翻嚟沙巴呢個就最關鍵啦。而家你都係我哋嘅 CBMC 嘅成員，一個就係將你嘅經驗，將你一切職場上嘅嘢，同埋呢一個你係讀過一個叫做牧師門啦，係嘛？你都讀過時候畢業啦，咁你就兩方面都可以兼顧嘅，你又講我哋CBMC 都係個得益啦。咁你又點樣睇 CBMC 咧？你之前你加入咗幾多年咧
？OK，我喺4、5年前加入CBMC 嘅。其實咧，我開始嗰陣時唔係最主要嘅原因，唔係我加入 CBMC。咁我睇到呢個弟兄，佢同我分享 CBMC 嘅 ministry 喺 KK 嗰陣時啱啱開始冇幾耐。咁佢就同我講，佢要學習點樣係一個所謂一個 professional，but at the same time 其實可以點樣去侍奉主耶穌嘅。所以我睇到呢個弟兄好火熱，咁我就繼續去鼓勵佢，咁繼續去參與佢，咁就俾佢好多即係教導佢啦。咁喺當中我就可以自己都可以感受到神嘅一個祝福 ，because this will be the first time that I participate in a Christian business community in the marketplace. I have been a pastor for many years. I've been a church leader for many years, but I don't directly involve in the marketplace per se. So God opens the door 4 or 5 years ago through this brother Richard Chang, and therefore I came in, wanted to help, but eventually I was become the part and parcel of the CBMC Kuala Kinabalu chapter, and just about 2 years ago, they invited me to join into the National Council as the members of the National Council. But basically, what we are doing right there is that we are able to strategize and to lead the CBMC to grow and to be of influence among the workplace that we are in. So I find that being in CBMC, I was able to encourage brothers and sisters, not only who are doing business in our church, but also from other churches. So our ability to spur one another on can grow to other churches. And therefore, I decided to do my best to participate in CBMC ministry.
因為我都係透過 CBMC 一個 live 識到你㗎，如果唔係真係係嘛？你咁好嘅咁好，我哋叫做咁好料嘅嘢，咁樣都能唔識到你，即係分享唔到咧，都唔可以錄起上嚟啊！所以就 CBMC 就我哋賣個廣告係一個工商管理基督徒官商管理。我呼籲下在座嗰啲非基督徒或者基督徒，你能夠係做生意嘅，可以 join 我哋係隨時歡迎嘅，唔係基督徒我哋接受嘅。我哋能夠 share 好多嘢啊！我哋能夠去交換我哋嘅事業啊，或者我哋嘅生意啊，都係一個，同埋呢個係一個大家庭嚟嘅。除咗馬來西亞之外咧，呢個係一個 international 嘅嗰個 chapter 嗰個一個基督徒嘅工商公會嚟嘅。我哋由美國開始好多年㗎啦，咁樣就好似咁遠嚟到呢個沙巴嘅趙邦嘅弟兄咧，我哋都能夠有識到佢就係咁開始，變到我哋嘅跨國喺我哋嘅神嘅角度，不但止咧，我哋嘅生意嘅角度都可以跨國，呢個非常之好嘅。咁你喺 CBMC 裏邊咧，除咗你侍奉俾出嚟，你係得着到啲乜嘢咧？你講嘅 sharing 下你嘅。
Okay. Obviously, besides serving, we have received a lot of benefit of knowing brothers and sisters have the growing desire to serve, and therefore we are able to produce more and more strong and biblical disciple. For me, there's an objective that we lay out to do when we were young believers, and now we are right into the midst of the actions, and I have received much encouragement to see their growth. But at the same time, I would like to give even more to help them to grow faster and stronger in Jesus. But BenGio, probably I wanted to share a little bit more about the business attitude, since we are all businessmen.
Yeah, have to.
Yeah. As an architect in Malaysia, in particularly, when I first came back here, I remember I asked my pastors, can you tell me which architect firm that has an architect that is not corrupted, not involved in any kind of unrighteous way of getting business? So he told me, and surprisingly, eventually I worked with this Malay architect. As a Malay architect, I've never seen him even once to be involved in all this unrighteous business. And that's how I first started. Yes. So I'm still having a strong relationship with this principal architects that I used to work, and we are very good friends until today. And he's an 81 years old architect, the oldest architect in KK. Yes. So with God's principle being built into our life for the last 30 over years, we make sure that our life are best used for the kingdom of God. While doing that, we still can earn our living, take care of our family. We have not neglect what God has called us to do, to be a professional, to be a father, to be a husband, and also to be a good CBMC members, you know. And I think the business ethic has to be truly biblical. God says in book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 12, the last chapter, verse 14, he said the whole duty of man is to be able to carry out God's commandment and to live our life righteous before God. And amazingly, over the 20 years that I worked and for my business in KK, without giving any form of corruptions or allow corruption to come into our company, we were able to get business. If I want to get the business every day, I can get the business every day. But unfortunately, we cannot deliver every day. So I have to stop taking some. Just 2 days ago, during this MCO, we got 2 new projects, you know, from clients that we hardly know them. They call me up and say, Chang Chiew Bong, would you like to take up this job? We have lockdown, we cannot go to work. And yet the client still calls up and say that, why don't you take up this project for us? You know, and I was really amazed of how God faithfulness works. You know, when we are faithful to Him, He remains faithful to us. When we are faithless, He still remains faithful to us. And therefore, I think it's a wonderful thing to be a Christian businessman because we have Jesus Christ to depend on. Not only in good time, but also in bad time. You know, so this really give me a real blessing of. I enjoy my work every single day. I go to work not as if I go to work. I go to work as if that I'm going to serve God. You know, so therefore, it's a great privilege in serving God.
咁我哋聽開你講咗咁耐啦，咁樣就神由你開始，由點樣信主，又點樣讀書，又點樣做埋你要嘅嘢，成為一個職師們同埋神學。咁講埋你家庭誒，俾我哋眾人咧俾我知道神點俾你嘅豐盛，等我哋會點講將你嘅喜悅大家一齊嚟分享感受你嘅喜悅，感受你嘅祝福個家庭。
我用最快嘅時間啦嚇，咁喺1995年我就認識咗我太太，嗰陣時我係第一年喺大學嘅，咁我太太已經係差唔多讀完啦，我就啱啱開始，因為我哋要讀嘅係5年，佢讀嘅係3年嘅 course， 咁然之後好快嘅。
你太太讀咩㗎？
我太太係讀biology 佢係 health science。Yes。咁然之後佢就離開咗澳洲，就翻去斯布沙拉沃做嘅工啦。咁1990年嗰陣時咧，佢就離開斯布，就翻去 Melbourne、Australia。咁我哋就結婚嗰陣。咁然之後咧，我哋好清楚嘅係因為神嘅呼召係咪神嗰個俾我哋個機會同埋一齊，所以我哋嘅生活，我哋嘅 life purpose 就應該係歸於神主耶穌嘅。咁 from there onwards, as we move to Singapore。We have our first child, Tema Chang。我有3個細路，一個最大嘅就係女，就係 Tema， 今年28歲。第二個咧就仔，就 Joshua， 就差唔多27歲。最細嘅就係 Timothy， 就25歲半咁。OK， 所以呢3個細路咧就我哋去到邊度，佢就跟到邊度嘅。所以 Tema 咧第一個咧，其實仲未喺出世嗰陣時，我哋就已經創辦緊新加坡希望教會啦。咁個教會係9個人，到今時今日應該係8000幾個人，9000人嘅教會。
哇 ！mega church
好大嘅係應該新加坡裏邊10 largest church 其中一個。咁 當佢仲未出世嗰陣時咧，the baby fetus is already listening to all the prayer and all the worship. So she was born, okay, in 1992. Same thing goes with Joshua, was born in 1993. And continuously, they follow us where we go. Wherever we go, they see what we do. The more they see what we do, they imitate what we do. And eventually, they do what we do. Okay, until today, Brother BenGio, all my 3 children are actively serving in church. They are either in teaching, they are either in translating the messages, they are the youth leaders and the university leaders, and they are young adult leaders, and they are care groups, home care groups leaders. So all of them are very involved, and I was really, really thankful. We have never in our life tell them that you must do this, you must do that. They learn by the example of our life. I think that is the best that I can share with brothers and sisters who have family. You do, they see, and they do what you do. And eventually you don't have to worry about whether they follow Jesus or not after they gone into the universities or go out to work. They will come. My daughter just got married on the 5th of September. Just recently, and God opens the door when there's no lockdown. We quickly had the wedding, and then now lockdown again, so we are not able to do much. Okay, but God has been very faithful because He has given us not only a son-in-law, but also the family of the son-in-law are very committed Christians. And my son Joshua is going off to Switzerland at the end of this year, and he too will be getting married in beginning of next year to a Swiss lady that they got to know in Germany during a church conference. And the family as well are very committed Swiss family to the Lord. So God has always been a great motivation for me. The more I serve God, the more God's blessing, not only in my generation, but in the next generation and the generations to come. God says that I will bless you from generation to generation. And I think that is a good thing for us to do. But first, we must be an example to our children. And my wife has always, I must say that my wife has always been my rock, and she's my greatest supporter. And she has done a great deal of good to the children when they were very young, you know, teaching them the right thing and helping them to acquire the right knowledge about life. So we stick together, our family will always be moving together, and we agree together. And my children hardly will quarrel among one another. I do not know why.
神嘅祝福啦！咁溫嘅家邊度有咁多嘈吵㗎？我都知你上次就係好忙㗎啦，因為應該係我訪問你1個月前嘅，就拖到今時今日嘅啫，就因為你嘅女結婚啦，跟住又有我知道你都係一個政治領袖嘅顧問啦，又有選舉入邊 work 到咧，又訪問到你，咁啱係得今次 CMCO 你就得閒呢個禮拜，下個禮拜你就唔得閒㗎啦，又飛嚟飛去㗎啦，所以都係好榮幸就係咁啱時間。其實今個禮拜我哋拖嗱 last minute 嗰幾日先 confirm 嘅，因為我仲有一個弟兄嘅，因為個弟兄咁佢又唔得閒就嚟先，跟住所以我做呢樣嘢都好奇妙嘅。所以我訪問好多個唔同嘅人物，尤其是係多方面咧，基督徒佢唔同嘅古仔、唔同嘅經驗，都俾我感受到得益良多。我哋學到好多嘢嘅。咁好啦，除咗我哋今時今日嘅分享到差唔多就尾聲，你有咩總結咧？
講多次，
總結
正話或者我講多少少咧，正話你講到喺政治嗰方面啦，咁神都有講到喺聖經裏邊講到嘅就係話當神帶你喺 in front of the kings and the rulers, and God will help you to open up your heart and your mouth and to share with them the great and unsearchable truth of the Word of God. So being back in KK, in Sabah, I had quite a number of opportunity to meet with politicians, you know, and either they are deputy chief ministers or chief ministers and ministers as a whole. And God gave me the opportunity to speak to them and with them about the message of Christ pray for them, for their leadership, for their courage, and ask God to bless them for the works that they do. And I'm just thankful for what God has opened up the ways for this. And in these recent elections, and also the new government, somehow or the others, I have my clients that are very close to all these politicians that are coming in to the business that we are doing right now. So I believe God will open even more doors, because in order to influence our society and to help to permeate Christianity to our society, we cannot just do it to 1 or 2 persons. We will do it as many as possible to be in the highest echelon of the government as much as possible. I believe that this is the next phase of my life. See, I see my life into 3 phases. The first phase, the first 25 years, I study from primary school to university. And I graduated and I get married at 25 years old. And from 25 to 50, I was very actively in the church ministry per se. Yeah. Now that I'm 55, I just officially retire in the statistics, so to speak. But from 50 to 75, 2 years ago, I flew back to Australia. I met my pastor that used to brought us up. I asked him, I say, Pastor Stewart, if you have to alive to live again from 50 years old to 25 years old, what would you do? Or sorry, 50 years old to 75 years old, what would you do? He said, Chiew Bong, I will do more discipleship. I will do more mentorship. I will do whatever that I can do in order to disciple more of a disciple. So you should be a disciple makers of a disciple. So that whatever that you have learned, whatever that you have heard, you'll be able to pass on to the next generation. And they can do even much more than you do. That's the advice given to me. So from 50 years old to 55, that is exactly what I've been trying to do. In fact, in CBMC, I was able to do more discipleship than ever before. So in conclusions, brothers and sisters, and you're watching us tonight with Brother BenGio, I want to encourage you that we are a mighty vessel for God. However, we are ordinary. You and I, Brother BenGio, we are ordinary persons. But we are used by God to do extraordinary things. God will use you and use me as a vessel to do extraordinary. That means extraordinary stuff. But without God, we can do nothing, the Bible says. The Holy Spirit will enable you to do things much faster, much more effective. For greater tasks that God has given to you, you're always able to complete it. It's not because of you. The Bible says that I planted it, Apollo waters it, but God is the one that will make it grow. Is that right?
That's correct.
Yeah. So the growing part, the successful part, the blessing part, the financial blessing part is all come from God. It's not just because of our own doing. So I wanted to give glory back to God and put my faith before God and believe that whatever that we need in our life, God will always provide. And He will never leave us nor forsake us till the ends of the age, the Bible says. So if you can be a professional who start to build strong and biblical disciple, reach out to unbelievers, then you will be able to build strong and biblical churches. Church is not just a building, but it's a group of strong, faithful believers coming to believe in God and to do the work of the ministry. So tonight, probably you don't hear me say much about my professional life. You hear much more about the integration of service of God into my professional life, more so, because I'm first a Christian, then I'm an architect, then I'm a boss, then I'm a husband. Because God says that, for without Him, we cannot do anything. And the whole duty of man is to make sure that you follow God's commandment and practice righteousness in your life. And I intend to continue to do that, until the day that I can no longer do it, But for the next 20 years or so, you'll be very exciting. You'll be very exciting. So I think that thank you for the opportunities.
或者照幫我聽到你咁，你都 ordinary man， 我哋係乜嘢喎？其實無論點都好啊，我知道神係用緊你嘅，因為講聖經記載啦，即係個個因子唔同啦，有啲係5,000兩，有啲係3,000兩，有啲係1,000兩啊，所以5,000兩做5,000兩嘅嘢咯，3,000兩做3,000兩嘅啫，1,000兩都要做1,000兩嘅嘢，冇將個銀紙收埋，冇將個1,000兩收埋，最緊要係你話齋 disciple， 即係你講得啱啊！我有個總結就係我喺 CBMC 裏邊，我都學到好多嘢，尤其是我哋做髮型嘅咧，我哋比較有感性嘅好藝術嘅性格。但係咧我聽除開，但係今日又聽到你有好特別嘅分享啦。咁我哋每日都有問啲問啦，我哋每一個弟兄姊妹，我哋嘅分享，我哋非常之學到太多嘢。喺個職場上，我哋要點樣做一個？我哋話齋就喺一個商人喺呢個市場嗰度係成為一個 Christian， 成為一個基督徒嘅商人，點樣去度過我哋嘅生意？點樣嘅苦難我哋點去走過？點樣去話齋點樣去勝過嗰啲叫做貪污又好啊，叫嗰啲引誘又好啊，或者其他嘢都好。呢一個我睇到今日我聽到你咁多，我都係即係學習良多，即係你聽到你一個咁 humble 嘅人，你能夠如果將你嘅才華去就係喺你嘅職司嗰度，你可以飛到更加高過而家10倍都有可能。但係你又唔係喎，你又將你嘅時間又擺喺教會啊，church branding 啊，或者係做咗好多嘢係你好願意去做嘅。但係再講翻轉頭，神都祝福你。咦，你唔係就係呢一方面喎，你成家人啊，而家你或者你都唔需要點樣教你嘅仔女，但係你嘅仔女又會跟住你嘅步驟，就係因為你，我相信嘅，因為你睇到你或者照幫你咁多年，佢哋自己都睇到你對家庭嘅付出，你對社會嘅付出，你嘅工作嘅付出，同埋你對任何事情嘅付出，我相信呢個係相信你嘅，你係應得嘅呢個福分，好啦，呢個最後啦，有咩再 final conclusion， 我哋就拜拜，差唔多成個鐘噶啦，又好準時啊，好快過噶啦。
感謝主，係啦。咁我正話開始嗰陣時，我就講點解我哋會用我哋最年輕嗰30年嚟侍奉主耶穌，唔係用最後嗰30年嚟侍奉主耶穌。So I want to conclude today is that after you have spent the first 25-30 years of your best time of your life to serve God, you look back, you have a lot of things to give thanks. We count God's blessing every single day. That ensure me that for the next 25 years or 30 years, which I will get older and less capable physically speaking, but I still continue to serve God because of the first 30 years. Don't use your last 30 years to serve God and use your first 30 years to serve your career, your family, or your bank account. You know, give God the best, and God will give you the rest. And I must be thankful that God has always been keeping us not only financially free in some way, but also God has given us healthy. You know, most importantly, every one of us. But also God has kept us to be having a strong desire to make our lives count for Jesus Christ. Not only me, not only my wife, but our children and also the in-laws as well. So I think what God says in the Bible, it says that if you decided to walk with Jesus in this generation, God will continue from generation to generation to bring blessing and honor to your family. So one way that we can end our lives by looking back and say that God, that has been a great years and the years of the work that we have in you, but we have lacked nothing today. God has not given us too little that we disown God. Neither God has given us too much that we forgot about God and start to serve our career and our businesses, you know. And beside the education business, architectural business, we started the tour business, we started cafe and catering business, and I'm also in a tire business as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so all these businesses, I'm not taking charge of it, but most of the time we started the business because we want to help brothers and sisters to move into the business marketplace environment. so that they too will be able to do likewise, you know. And just to cap it all, Brother BenGio, beside Singapore, Hong Kong, China, we also have planted churches in Taiwan, in Philippines, in South Korea, in Japan. So I take care in the Hope of God ministry, there is where I come from. I take care of the Northeast Asia region, NEAR, the near region I call it, NEAR, Northeast Asia region. So all these countries I just mentioned fall into my jurisdiction and my care. So in 1999, when we first came back to Sabah, we already have successfully planted all the seed churches in all this country. They are not mega church, they're seed church, they're a growing church. Today, they have good, strong churches there. But my job is to land there, have all the faith that I could possibly have from God, and start the work of the ministry and let the local people grow and continue to grow among themselves. So in life, we could have done many, many other things. And God has been blessing us all along the way. But one thing that I will always give thanks as I look back is that God has been good to us.
Yeah, wow.
God, even during this time of COVID-19, God has been good to us. Most of the architectural firms are sizing down, but for us, we're getting quite a few of jobs that by early next year, there will be a few mega jobs that is on the construction. So I think it's about time for me to bow out. And I wanted to go into the semi-retirement from my professional life.
Okay.
So I can go back into the full-time ministry in serving God in His kingdom. So I'm doing the other way around. You know?
OK， 哇！我哋今日真係學好多嘢。今日呢個 Brother Chiew Bong 真係好多謝你嘅分享，俾我哋聽到津津有味。點樣講神點樣去祝福你啊？同埋我都聽到你哇，唔單止講嘅 trust branding， 講你嘅事業，甚至乎而家希望你幫助 CBMC 多啲。跟住得你賺到你足夠退休啦，咁更加之全職嘅侍奉，呢個就非常之好嘅，因為你將你嘅後咧就其實。好多後生人都睇唔到呢一樣嘢嘅，即係我信主都係96年啦，都係20幾年啫。即係後生嘅時候我都未認識得，但係認識嗰次以後咧，係呢幾年咧，我就比較 involve 多啲嘢咧 ，involve 翻多啲響神嗰啲咁嘅聚會啊，或者就係今日好慶幸咧，我就參加到CBMC， 亦都識到好多唔同教會啊、唔同行業啊、唔同領袖嘅真係好多謝你Brother Chiew Bong，咁樣我哋都聽到你今日嘅分享，希望會祝福神會再更加之祝福你，更加之祝福公眾同埋其他，希望多啲嚟參與我哋 CBMC， 跟住我哋再去有 Brother Chiew Bong 嘅領導，跟住我哋點樣擴充我哋嘅生意，不但止仲可以我哋嘅神嘅角度都有大嘅益着嘅。好。OK， 多謝啦，大家，我哋講又寫拜拜㗎啦 ，good night 㗎啦嚇。咁我哋私底下我哋再聯絡，希望透露更加多私底下教我哋點去我哋啲 disciple。
Yeah, we can spur one another.
Yes,
Thank you.
Bye bye, good night.
Okay, good night, bye bye.